Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Danny. This is my mate, Danny Brown. I am Sam Fiorella, and this is our latest episode of Marketing on Tap, vlog, and podcast.
Podcast.
Oh, and beer. So today, we had actually another topic that we were going to talk about, but we've been reading a lot about this buck of beer issue here in Ontario. For those of you that don't live in Ontario, Canada, a couple of quick notes. Ontario has a liquor control board that, like I think Pennsylvania and the United States is very similar, where it is a state or provincial run liquor retail environment, so they're the only ones that can sell. And we had a provincial election recently, and one of the candidates, a very controversial candidate, one of our, for those of you that know, remember our former Toronto mayor that got all kinds of attention, his brother, Doug Ford, ran for Toronto City Council or mayor and lost, and held a lot of, animosity towards the city. So he runs for the provincial premiership and got it and won. And one of his campaigns was bringing back buck of beer. Now, the buck of beer means that we can start to sell cans of beer for $1. But they have to be sold for a minimum of $1 or higher. It used to be $1.25. $1.25, yeah. And it was about 11, 12 years ago or something like that. The local government raised it to combat the over drinking and just over consumption of beer. And so they thought this was one of the ways to sort of curb that a little bit by making it a little bit more expensive. Well, anyway, he campaigned, believe it or not, in this crazy Trump world. We now have politicians who can run on reducing the cost of beer and actually become elected to our government. And so he's making good on that. And he's issued a beer challenge to all the brewers in Ontario. Say, if you produce and sell a can of beer for $1, we're not going to give you any cash incentives. We're not going to give you any subsidies, no tax benefits to your business. However, we will, because we control the retail of liquor in this country or this province, we will give you prime spots. Right. So you're going to get the end caps, you're going to get advertising, which is valuable because they have to pay for this, right? So it is an incentive in a way because there's some brand exposure. Well, there's been a lot of backlash over this, not only from the public, but from other brewers. And that's what we want to talk about today. Obviously Danny and I love beer. Craft beer in particular. And listen, I'm an alcoholic. I can't.
I can just take craft beer, so I'm going to stick with that.
I mean, I don't think I'm fooling anybody here. But anyway, for the purposes of this one, we're talking craft beer.
Yeah.
And so we want to talk about what are marketers to do? What are these guys going to do? The beer marketers in particular, and what can other industries potentially learn when the government sticks their nose into your business and maybe creating an unfair playing advantage?
Yeah, definitely.
So I think we want to talk about that, but we also need to take a little bit of a moment out to recognize and sympathize with Danny here for how sad you must be this week. It's
I must be this week.
Yeah, that's a fake smile on your face.
Yeah,
It's a forced smile. It's the start of the premiership.
Oh, right, okay.
The Premier League started this week, and Danny's a big Arsenal fan, but he's still a good guy nonetheless. And they lost in a relatively big way.
2-0.
2-0.
Oh, good.
Well, that's a fake smile because Liverpool, my team, of course, won ceremoniously 4-0.
We played the champions. You played the almost relegated guys last year, so there's no difference.
Oh, well, if you want to look at it that way, but we could also look at it another way in that last year's opening match, Arsenal lost as well. And they happened to lose to Liverpool, just saying. So that's a little bit of a bad track record. Anyway, I can sympathize with you, Danny. Really, I feel for you. So I'll take it easy on you for the rest of the podcast. But we do want to talk a little bit about the beer you poured.
So this is Thornbury Village, out in Thornbury, the village of Thornbury. So it's a really easy one to remember. It's thornburycraft.com, and this is their ladder run amber lager, and it's like a real smoother beer. It's like a 4.8%. Not a lot of IBU there, and it's mixed with some Vienna malt and noble hops. So it's meant to be like a really smooth drinking beer.
Well,
I like the ambers, so
I do.
lager.
Yeah, I do, and which is really interesting. And so I'm going to compliment you for getting a real beer this time.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh yeah, that's a lager.
Yeah, it tastes like an ale though.
I was about to say
It doesn't have a lager, but it tastes like an ale, so it's like an interesting mixture.
It doesn't have the caramelly sort of flavor that an amber typically would have.
Yeah.
I think this is one that even Robert might enjoy.
Yeah.
And for a craft beer.
But no, I like it. It's good. So
Robert is, for those of you that are not, that Robert is our producer. He's back from Scotland, where he had 2 drams of scotch and is still drunk over that. Not a big drinker.
There was 4 Armstrongs, so.
So yes, that's true. All right, okay. So let's get back to the buck of beer thing. So why is this such a big deal? I guess is the one question I want to throw at you. Doug Ford said this is optional.
Yeah.
You don't have to participate in it. You can if you want, but so why is this such a big deal for so many brewers? Let's start there. Brewers saying no. Yeah. This is dumb. We're not going to do it. This is all stupid. But they don't have to participate. So why is it a big deal?
They don't have to participate, but it's all about scale and economies of scale. We know that the likes of Molson, Coors, and that. I mean, they own the beer store, so they've already got a retail channel anyway.
Yeah.
That craft brewers have to pay a premium to even get shelf space, and that's if they get front of store, as opposed to being in the back, and you've got to find it on their new iPads, to find a beer. Same with LCBO. I think it's about 50 or 60% of shelf space currently goes to the AB InBevs of the world and their brands and the Coors and the Molsons. And craft's getting more into, as far as it comes to beer anyway, about 50-60% just a guess. And craft also has a lot of shelf space there, but it pays a premium to get in. And when it comes to production, we've spoken to many craft brewers. Mm-hmm. We know how much it costs to make beer, to keep people employed, to get it marketed to beer drinkers. So when Ford says buck of beer open to all brewers, it's really meaning it's open to Budweiser, it's open to Labatt's, it's open to the big guys that he's courting. And so the small guys can't afford to drop the prices and the manufacturing prices to make this buck of beer and take on the big guys and take advantage of it.
Well, taking politics out of it for a minute, because I would be happy to sit here talking about politics and what a stupid idea this was and how stupid it was for us as a people to even elect somebody that promotes easier access to beer or cheaper access to beer, or even just using it as when we have people being laid off, we have unemployment is not great. I mean, there's all kinds of other social issues, but I don't want to get into that here. This is a marketing podcast, so. I mean, I understand there's 2 brewers that have taken up the challenge and that are currently in production to produce a $1 beer that is going to be in the store. What I read in terms of what their marketing campaign is going to be is that is in fact their marketing campaign. They don't have a marketing budget. Right. These are 2 craft brewers who are saying, yes, it is next to impossible to produce a quality beer for $1.
Yeah.
Just the costs are more than $1, right? And we can break down the costs here if we want to as well. But, if they say, well, listen, if I had to spend $100,000 to get shelf placement at the LCBO and get advertising and hire a marketing manager and change my, do some new cans, I have no guarantee that I'm going to get any trial. But this is guaranteeing me some trial because they're going to advertise me, they're going to put me, so that's their marketing budget. Yeah. So he goes, we're not making any money, so it's fine. Others are saying, listen, that's losing me money. It's not going to get me. And so who's being narrow-sided here? The marketers that say, no, I can't make money that way, or those who are saying that this is a worthwhile trial loss leader type campaign?
I don't even think it's like a long-term plan, though. It's a short-term gain, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to get my beer in front of the shelf space. And people that might buy, say, a Budweiser will try this buck of beer from Barley Haze. But after this trial ends, at least they're going to be able to afford to make $1 of beer and keep in long-term profits. Yeah. I mean, you saw the cost of making a basic beer, right? The basic cost. I know there's a brewer over in London, Ontario, that mentioned, sure, I can sell you a buck of beer that will be in a 2-ounce glass, so you want to keep the quality exactly the same as you get currently, as opposed to this chemical stuff that a lot of the bigger brewers use to, lower the price there.
And I think that's maybe an interesting way to look at this, is long-term versus short-term.
Right.
Just outside of the beer industry in general, one of the things that I've always pushed our clients against is don't devalue your brand.
Yeah.
If you want to run a promotion, run a limited promotion. Don't drop your price, because if anything, keep your price a little bit high and offer value added services to try and attract people, because once you go down and once you devalue your brand, it is very difficult to go up. You know, it's one thing you can bring the perceived value of your brand down, but to bring it back up to a premium level, you're never going to do. So the way I look at it is, if they're going to come out and say, well, I want to be known, I want people to try my beer, and I want people to see my brand, well, what kind of a beer are you putting out at $1?
Exactly.
Which is, as has been proven, is just not really possible with any kind of quality ingredient. Every brewery agrees to that. So number one, what sample are they actually getting? Number two, even if you're producing a good quality beer and losing money in order to sell it for the dollar and get that trial because they're guaranteeing you placement, what does that actually do to your brand value? So I'm going to know your brand now, but I'm going to know it as the Buck a Beer brand.
Exactly.
I'm going to know you as a cheap beer. That reminds me of, remember Lakeside?
It was Lakeport?
Was it Lakeport?
It was Lakeport.
Was it Lakeport that the Labatt's eventually bought?
Yeah, 2-4 for 2-4.
Right, exactly.
It was 2-4 for 2-4.
And quite frankly, they did really well. There was
a
lot of years they were producing an incredible amount of beer. They even did President's Choice Craft Beer. They were they produced that. They were producing I think 100,000 cans a month or some kind of crazy number like that. And for a few years they did well, but then they couldn't sustain themselves. Right? And then what ended up happening? Labatt's, one of the big beer conglomerates, come up, bought them, and killed them.
They stripped them down
just so that there would be no price wars anymore, that there would be nobody selling. You know what was really funny about that? Not only did they kill the business when they bought it, they even refused to sell the business, nor resell any of the equipment. They literally burned the entire place to the ground just because this was a disease. So even if this was...
And this is why we don't support Labatt's with any kind of beer.
Yeah.
Just,
Sorry, guys. I actually have some people that were friends that work at Labatt's. I'm sorry. I know this is how you make your money. But yeah, this is... There is such a monopoly on this, and they control so much of this that they're really not giving opportunity to these younger brewers to come up with something really interesting like this Thornberry one here that I'm really enjoying. So I agree with you, mate. Short term is not the way to go. So for those who are looking to try it and get into the Buck of Beer selling it, I would warn them if they were our client.
Yeah, done.
But let's turn this around. Yeah. If they were our client, what would we tell them to do in this current environment?
Right.
We said we were always going to do a podcast about beer marketing anyway, so maybe this is a roundabout way of doing it. What would you do, not just given any circumstances, like in an ideal world, but in our current environment where public is aware of this Buck of Beer, and that you have that competition because some are buying into it? How would you market your brand differently?
It's tough. I mean, do you go on a sampling tour? So you've already got the supporting guests of the LCBO and the retail outlets that they provide, because you're taking part in the Buck of Beer. So the LCBO said you're going to get shelf space. Can they partner with the retail outlets to have samples so you can actually keep? Because the beer that we're making, at the moment, the lowest price beer is about $3.50 barley base.
Yeah.
So there's a big drop from $3.50 to $1.
Right.
So do you keep the $3.50 and say, okay, we'll give you a sample of the beer at $1, and we might even make it $1.50 at retail or something. But you have to realise that we can't, this is just a short campaign just to introduce you to a beer, and anybody that enjoys and takes part and buys this beer, we'll give you a loyalty discount on further purchases either at the retail store, at whatever, at shelf space. I don't think you can go in and say that we want to be known as Buck of Beer guys and try own that market, because the market can't sustain it. We've seen it before. So I guess
they're thinking though is I agree with you, but think of the challenge that these guys are facing though. As a marketer of a craft brewery, I can say, well, this campaign is not costing me anything. Yeah. Trial is not, I'm going to have to produce a cheaper beer maybe I'll lose a little bit in the profit, but it's not going to physically take more money out of my pocket to buy space or to travel to do the beer tastings or anything like that, and I got trial. Whereas what you're suggesting actually is going to mean they got to take money. They're producing their beer at $3 a can or $3.50 a can, and then they have to travel to all the various craft festivals, beer festivals, wine and food shows, and actually sample their product. So that's going to take money that they don't necessarily have, because the craft beer industry is notoriously poor. There's not a lot of cash there. Yeah. So I think that the question there, or the decision for these guys in your scenario would be, is it better to find a little bit of money, invest a little bit of money, and take that risk of getting a higher quality client and proving that my beer is good, right? Or go the cheap route. I think, I agree with you, by the way. That's how I would say, do less, do one festival instead of 10 festivals, but slowly build up the brand for people who are prepared to pay.
Yeah. What's funny, I mean, you mentioned the price and the risk, and like Bill Smith is like one of our friends and a fellow craft beer drinker. He mentioned on a recent blog post on Ben's Beer Blog about are the guys that normally drink Bud and Moose and Labatt, etc., that I guess the bucket beer target is going for. Will they actually, once the trial's over, will they stick with Barley's once the beer goes back up to its regular $2.50, $3? Or is Barley's going to take a longer term pitch to try to keep these guys? And then what's the danger for the company then?
And there's so many external factors there in the cost, right? We've got this crazy trade war with the United States right now, where aluminum is going up, and so the cost of the raw materials is going to cost them. I mean, I would look at maybe another idea. If you're going to do something like that, there has to be an educational campaign involved in this. Maybe that's one of the things that the craft guys get together. I know that they're, because they don't have a lot of money to spend in associations and marketing, maybe they all get together and they do an awareness campaign to the public. Do you really want to buy the cheap beer? This is what you're getting. Spend a little bit more money. Canadians are not afraid to spend money on beer.
Right.
I mean, that's well known. So, and they will spend a premium for good quality products. So that's what I would do. I would go after the, loyalty of true Canadians and maybe associate it with being Canadian and quality beer.
Right.
And how many times we complain about American beer?
Yeah, exactly.
What are they, piss water?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just so watered down. So what, we're going to go producing American style beer? We've become so prideful about the quality of our beer compared to what they drink in the United States. I maybe would look at advising a client to play up on that little bit of more nationalism and say, this is what a real Canadian beer is. A bucket beer isn't a Canadian beer, it's an American beer.
Exactly.
This is what Canadian beer is. And I think that Canadians really, especially when you pit us against the United States, that's where our patriotism. We're not a very prideful people, and we don't wear our patriotism on our sleeves. But the minute you pit us against the Americans, all of a sudden we become very prideful, right? So I would look at maybe doing that. I also saw one company that is saying, you know what, we're going to donate some of our profits or some of our proceeds to a cause.
Yeah, so Dominion City up in Ottawa, one of my favourite brewers, they're actually producing a beer called Bucket Beer. It's going to cost $3.50 at retail, and for every can, they'll donate $1 to incoming refugees, Syrian refugees in the Ottawa region. It's awesome.
Talk about getting politics involved. I love that twist, right? Because this whole thing about Syrian refugees being allowed into the country, where like in the United States they're being rejected. And calling it a bucket beer, you know what I mean, and just turning the politics on its head. I think that's ingenious, and I like that. So that's another great example of a really good marketing campaign. Use the current political environment that brought the situation to your front door, flip it on its ear, and make it work for you instead of buying into that, and you can still make some money out of it. See, that's a great idea, because then the goodwill that you're going to get and the PR that you're going to get out of that is going to give you the exposure that a lot of these guys buying into the bucket beer and offering $1 a beer they're trying to get. That PR value and earned media is going to be just the same, and you're not losing any margin. Or not a lot of margin anyway with whatever you're giving away. So anyway, here's our bell. Somewhere around this area, there's a little bell.
High-tech bell.
It's a little high-tech bell. We told you this has got to be the lowest budget podcast ever, but there is a little virtual bell going to be ringing here. I'm thinking if our creative team has anything to do with it. So last call. What is the final thought takeaway that we could give either beer marketers or general marketers from what we've learned from this experience?
I think it just goes back to two things: customer loyalty and knowing the value of your brand. We saw the huge amount of backlash that the two companies, the one company and now two companies that are getting for taking part in bucket beer and lowering the perception of what kind of beer they are going to produce. And I mean, if you look on Twitter, Facebook, anywhere there's discussion about this, the craft beer fans say, look, I will happily pay you double what I pay now to keep producing what you're producing. We will support you. We don't want bucket beer. So know your customers, know the fact that you can build up loyalty, that they will stick with you and defend you when crap like this happens, I guess. And they'll continue to buy your products even when there's something 4 or 5 times cheaper on the marketplace. So look after that and build that advocacy where you have that crowd ready to support you.
Yeah, talk about influence marketing. This is prime now to identify those true beer lovers and have them advocate on your behalf.
And that could be the education part you talked about.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Helping the brewers.
And I would agree with that, and I would only add to that. I mean, I would like to come up with something different, but that's I think is a really good takeaway. Know your audience first before you.
My first one of all the shows so far.
It's the first one that I've actually agreed to, so that's something. I'm actually just throwing you a bone because I feel so bad about Arsenal losing this weekend. What I would only add to that, I think, is the idea that use whatever works for your industry or your audience. So know your audience, but what is it that resonates with them? So like the idea that I had earlier, which was the nationalism, play up on the nationalism or play up on the quality, the issue of quality.
Yeah.
Right? So as part of that education, get an understanding what motivates that audience to buy your beer in the first place and then work from there. So that's probably the final takeaway that I think we can learn from here. Learn from the public backlash, and I think we can make I think if we had Thornbury, you need a marketing company? Because I really enjoy your beer. If like this was one of my clients, that's probably the advice that I'd want to give them and leave them with. So anyway, that's it for today's episode. We are at our time, and thank you for tuning in. For those of you, thanks for the great feedback we've been getting. If you really enjoy this, subscribe to the YouTube channel and/or subscribe to our podcast so that you get alerted when we release these. So until next week, thanks guys. Cheers. Have a great week.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.